All right, good evening. Thank you for your patience. It is 7:08 p.m. and my name is Rebecca Bench. I will call this meeting of the Hatfield School Committee to order. The first item of business on the agenda is public comment. Today we have public comment available via Google Meet as well as in person. This meeting is being streamed on YouTube and recorded for later viewing and posting on YouTube. Before we begin public comment, I would like to read some selections from the school committee policies regarding comment at our meetings. Public comment shall be for a period of 20 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. Any citizen wishing to speak will identify themselves by name and shall speak for no longer than 3 minutes. Those making in-person comments should put their name and address on the sign-in sheet. Those participating remotely may submit this information via the chat feature. Improper conduct and remarks will not be allowed. Defamatory or abusive remarks are always out of order. If a speaker engages in such conduct, the chair may terminate the individual's privilege of addressing the group. Speakers may offer such objective criticism of school operations and programs as concern them, but in public session, the committee will not hear personal complaints of school personnel nor against any member of the school community. Written comments may be presented to the committee before or after the meeting for the committee's consideration. I would also like to add that the committee was happy to receive a number of emails from school community and community members, and we really appreciate those. So considering that, depending on how many people would like to make a comment tonight, if you did send an email, just consider if you want to let someone who did not send an email speak first. So the chat is open if people would like to submit names for public comments. I also see one person at least on the telephone. If you would like to make a comment and you're on the telephone, you can unmute yourself and let us know. Otherwise, Jean, if you could just grab the sign-in sheet. Great. Sorry. I'm so far away. All right. Did everyone present who wishes to make a comment sign in to the sheet? Yeah? Okay. All right. So I will start with the in-person sign-in sheet. And we will begin with John Garrett. So you can come up to the seat in the front and
email. So if there's somebody else
do you want to defer for a minute?
I can wait until somebody else
Okay.
has a chance to speak.
Carrie Flaherty. Thanks, John.
I'm seeing enough that there's a lot of echo. Becca.
I don't know. Okay. Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm Carrie Flaherty. I live on Bremner's Path in Hatfield. My daughter's in 3rd grade. I got to be honest, I'm surprised. I can't believe we're sitting here 18 months later and we're still having the same discussions as we were 18 months ago and for many months after that. So with that said, for most of the community, they probably are aware of the position that I held beforehand, which was a tough road, and I give all the kudos to everybody that's sitting at these tables who had to go through it all last year also, because it was not any fun for any of us. And like I said, I can't believe we're sitting here having to have this discussion over again. As a parent, but also as somebody who works in the public health field currently, in my role is actually in COVID in a different school district. I just am my request would be is that we take everything the state and DESE is saying into consideration. I personally feel that our state Department of Public Health has worked very hard, especially over these last 18 months, to make hard decisions for our community and the state as a whole. Everybody has their 100% personal opinions on what COVID may or may not be realistically or not. Plenty of people are afraid, and plenty of people are understanding and live their lives to what they feel is important. With that said, I just think that this year particularly, I would love to see that Hatfield as a district not take everything to the absolute extreme so our children can be able to go to school, be educated, and have somewhat of a normal, and that is not a true word anymore, I don't think, in anybody's lives, normal life. And so I have to be honest, 2 weeks ago I would have sat here and said, no masks at all, as a parent, as in the position I hold, etc. That changes every day, and in all honesty, DESE right now, they make it very hard. The state and DESE make it hard because they leave it on all of you guys to make that decision, which really is, you don't want to upset people, but you also want to do what's right for everybody, etc. You know, and it's a hard decision to make. So I just hope that, and I respect that you guys are doing what you everything you possibly can, that we don't make super extreme restrictions this year, which I do feel at some points last year we actually did. So I would hope that moving forward, when you guys get to policy discussion tonight and policy is set, that people in the general community realize that this isn't an easy decision to make, and you guys are in a very hard predicament, and that we just respect the decision that's made. And I just hope that in a few months we're going to see this hopefully go away, and we can start to lessen restrictions in the school building for our students and our staff, etc. We all thought that getting vaccinated was going to be the answer, and it clearly doesn't seem to be the answer at this point. However, Hatfield in the last 60 days has had 2 cases. And I really truthfully believe that we have to pay attention to that kind of information. And knowing and paying attention to what happened in the school district last year, our cases in the school were much less, and our cases in the town of Hatfield in the last 18 months is 175 cases out of 3,300 people. So that is, Hatfield as a community has done really, I think, what they need to do. And not saying that other people didn't do it. I'm just saying is that for a community our size to have 175 cases in 18 months, that's something to be proud of, that we did do what we're supposed to do, and we did follow the rules, and we tried our best. You know what I mean? Everybody tried their best to do what is needed. Maybe we don't all live the same way that everybody wants it to be, and nobody ever is going to do that. So we have to respect each other's feelings and decisions and thoughts on the matter, and just take it all into consideration. So that's where I kind of sit on it all. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
His
I think-
computer is muted.
Michael, I think maybe it's my computer. I was thinking that computer there. Can we just turn off the volume? Turn it off
Mute it.
on the computer itself. Karen Prue?
Hi, my name is Karen Prue. I am the mom of a 6th grade at Hatfield Elementary. And I'm here because I firmly believe that based on the current data and evidence that, medical and scientific evidence, that masks should be required indoors among our unvaccinated elementary school age, especially among those children. I think it's, like I said, it's really the best defense, and I think it will not only keep our children safe, but also keep them in school, which I think is really a goal that we all share. And that's all I have. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Julia Frisby?
I also sent an email, so if we want to.
Okay. Shawn Selby?
Hi, guys. My name is Shawn Selby. I have a Hatfield rising freshman this year, and one of my jobs is as a registered nurse and a quality assurance director at a healthcare facility in North Amherst. And I'm here because I feel strongly, and I have quite a bit of evidence to back up the fact that Delta is different. I first of all just want to say thank you to everyone who did an incredible job last year, including Carrie Flaherty back there. It was a big ask, and we got through, like Carrie said, pretty well. But having said that, the Delta variant is more infectious. It evades the immune response more effectively. And just to give a slight picture, whereas we had been saying last year, exposure within 15 minutes can cause infection, using those same metrics, the Delta variant is down to a second. And that's not from me, that's from an epidemiologist that's running the New York City vaccine program. So having said that, I have several concerns about why or why not we should be masking our kids in the school. The first concern is that obviously kids under 12 cannot be vaccinated. However, Delta is different. Even fully vaccinated people can carry a viral load in the back of their throat and in their noses that's 1,000 times more effective at infecting someone who doesn't even have to be 6 feet away. So, those of us who were lucky enough to be vaccinated back in January and February are starting to have our immunity wane. So it's not just about the kids, which I worry about. I just gave Jean an article from the American Academy of Pediatrics where there has been a 1,000% increase in COVID cases amongst children under 12 since June. That's not to say they're all ending up in the hospital. I don't think that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about the school as part of a larger community. And believe me, I get the whole wanting to be free of masks thing. But we're not out of this, and Delta is different. So I hope you can take some of those little nuggets as you make your final decision. And thanks again, I really appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thank you, Shawn.
Thank you.
We're just having a little technical difficulty with the online portion. I think we're muted online.
Yeah.
Okay.
Figure out how to get you back. Mute the phone and do it through your laptop.
Okay. So unmute on there. Everything on YouTube, people were using the YouTube, and it was still being recorded on that. Just the Teams part was having some trouble. Oh no, we're gone.
Is this the touch screen?
Nope, sorry. Oh, look, right at the bottom.
Okay.
You can click it, just the red.
No.
No, just do the red one at the very bottom.
Oh,
The red
Dot.
circle, there it is.
Can you hear us now, folks? On Google Meet?
you should be, because I can hear it on the phone again.
Okay. All right. Sorry about our technical difficulties. We definitely appreciate it. Okay. So we will now go to Cindy Kwasinski, who is on the chat. And then, providing we have time, we'll return to you folks who graciously deferred. Maybe. Cindy, I think you should be unmuted now if you would like to make your comment.
Yes.
Quietly.
Okay. Cindy Kwasinski, I'm a special ed teacher at Smith Academy. I was an active member of the JLMC last year, trying to keep us safe.
You have the laptop muted?
You might have to mute all of them.
They're not, they're just monitors.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
We did get a letter
And
from
we
her,
watched the
so.
numbers. and respond ahead instead of being reactive. I'd like us to continue to be proactive in keeping everybody safe. Once we get teachers and students into the building, we have to keep them there. And we have to keep them by keeping them healthy. And Delta is just spreading too quickly. So most communities that I'm aware of are adopting a mask mandate, and they are restarting their safety measures to keep the kids not only coming in on the first day, but the teachers and kids staying and able to go through the year. We don't want another year where we all have to go remote, and masks are a really easy way to keep us safe. I'd also hope for pool testing. That was really successful, and I think we do that again, and we have a good chance of making it through the year in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy?
I don't know what to do on that. Maybe we should just turn off the volume. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Microphone on the phone and the laptop. It's one or the other.
Okay.
I think that's what we've been doing.
John, you're welcome to come forward if you'd like to make a comment. We'll move forward in person. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
No problem. So my name is John Garrett. I'm the co-president of the Hatfield Teaching Association, also a high school history teacher. Just to start off, I want to thank you guys for dealing with the technological hurdles you're in the middle of dealing with, and expanding access to public comment to as many members of the community as can make it through, the digital divide that we're struggling with. So thank you for working on this, and I appreciate that you guys are going to continue working on this to make it easier on everybody to be involved. So that being said, again, really, really appreciate that. I came to the last meeting to make a comment in that regard, and I wasn't wearing a mask. This time I am. It's largely, I have no doubt most people in this room are vaccinated, but it's also an easy thing to do, which is part of the reason I'm wearing it. So it's a lot harder, again, to do a hybrid sort of situation like we did last year with the technological issues. So this is an easy lift as far as what Ms. Kwasinski was saying in her comment, keeping kids in school and making it so we have an environment where it's the easiest for them to learn. So I hope that when you guys take up the EBC supplemental policy, you, at least for the foreseeable future, until we can get kids under the age of 12 vaccinated and help protect their families and them, that we have a mask mandate in the Hatfield public school system. It follows the science, it makes sense, it's not a hard thing to do to wear a piece of cloth, for 6 hours during a day, and it's a way we can protect each other and all members of our community. And so that's, again, it's a small sacrifice for an individual to do to help protect the greater whole. And so I appreciate your considering that, and thank you for the time in front of you.
Thank you. All right, Julia?
Hi, I'm Julia Frisby. I am the mother of a incoming first grader, and I have to completely agree. I think that things have changed very quickly in the last few weeks, but even if they weren't, I think masks are so easy to wear, and our kids are fully unvaccinated. It is the same. We need to be proactive. We all want to keep our kids in the school system all year. We don't want to have any other complications. And I think in addition, it's like putting your kid in a car seat. You don't expect to get in a car accident on your way to your destination, but you don't arrive at your destination and think, man, I wish I hadn't buckled my kid in. It's just one thing that we can all do to make it through the school year as a community. I think we've done an amazing job. I am so proud of everything that we were able to do last year, especially, my kindergartner was able to be in the building for the majority of the year. I know that wasn't the case with everyone, but I felt so proud of our kids and their resilience, their ability to wear masks. My daughter has had her mask on in hiking in the heat every single day all summer at various camps and has not complained once. Like, she would never, ever look at me and say, can I take a mask break? She doesn't care. They know they're keeping themselves safe from the germ. I've had this conversation with her, and it just shouldn't be an issue. The Delta variant is different. It's out there. Kids are in hospitals around the country. I don't think any of us want to have a conversation with our child about why their friend has been out of school for weeks at a time. This is not a hard decision to make. It is impossibly hard to think why anybody would want to make a decision in any other way. And I obviously am very passionate about this, but I just can't understand why anyone would argue against mask wearing for kids who are not vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I think I speak for the committee, just saying thank you to all of you who submitted written comments or attended the meeting either in person or virtually to make your voices known. And we really appreciate anytime somebody makes a public comment. So thank you for that. We will be moving on from this agenda item. So the Google Meet is going to be closing, but the meeting can continue to be streamed on the YouTube website. And certainly we'll continue to have it in person. So we will go on from there. The next item of business on our agenda is the approval of meeting minutes. There are a couple of minutes in the school committee member packet. So the floor is open for discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of Tuesday, June 29th executive session, Friday, July 2nd open meeting, and Friday, July 2nd executive session.
Second that motion.
Are there any edits or discussion regarding these minutes?
Just to thank you for those of you who wrote minutes for us.
And perhaps a plug for any community member who would like to become our recording secretary. All right, anything else?
This has been a group effort on these
It
minutes.
has been a group effort, absolutely. All right, hearing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes pass. The next item is correspondence. I did already allude to the fact that the school committee received a lot of correspondence in the last week that we very much appreciate. And I do not have any additional correspondence to share with the committee. Mr. Ward, do you have any other correspondence to share?
that all of you did.
Okay, all right, perfect. Then that's a quick agenda item. We will move to administrative reports, starting with our superintendent, Mr. Michael Wood.
Yeah, so we've been continuing to work on our opening up plan. We're editing and drafting that, which will follow whatever the committee decides is the policy, opening policy, so we'll adapt that. We're listening to and taking into account what other communities are doing, and getting ideas from them as well to see how we can manage whichever way you guys decide to go. So that's been very helpful. The facilities are in good shape as we're opening up. We had a little problem with some air conditioners and condensers leaking this morning in the high school, but other than that, we're going to be able to open up with great fanfare with shiny floors and clean desks and everything ready to go. So I'm really pleased with how everything is looking. Fields at the high school look amazing. So it's great to be able to walk up there at noon time every day and see how well they're going to be in good shape for our athletes this summer, this fall. As far as personnel goes, we're continuing to hire our openings. We had some interviews scheduled for tomorrow for the full-time music position. The half-time music position has a person interested and willing to accept the position. So we're looking good there. We have two of our newest members of the administrative team here tonight. In that our Director of Student Services, Molly Bremner, is here, and our new Director of Food Services, John Halpin, is here as well. Both have been extremely busy getting the new year ready for opening, and we're very happy to have them on board. And both are very busy hiring personnel as well, because we do have a few special ed openings, especially in the para department. That's really much of what they're working on. And financially, we're doing well. We have not had any major hiccups. We're trying to wrap up our grants. working on the, getting the data from the community on the ESSER grant, so we'll wrap that up, and then we'll sit down and have our first budget advisory meeting, because then we'll be able to say where all of our finances are coming from for the year from the start, so that we're not going to have to come back and redo that. Although I'm very impressed, our principals and the directors are very good at finding grants, so I'm sure we'll, throughout the year, be reporting on new grants that are coming to you as well to accept, so.
What's the deadline for ESSER 3?
Um,
We know?
Yes, it's October 4th, I believe.
Okay,
I just read it. Yeah.
thanks.
We'll have it submitted, hopefully within the next week is my goal.
Okay.
So that's my report.
Wonderful. Do school committee members have any questions for our superintendent?
I was asked if we are on target to offer our own lunches for the start of school.
I believe we are. We're doing well in terms of the ordering and so forth. I don't know, John, if you want to speak to that real quickly?
Yeah, well, I think we're.
Seat.
Yes, we are making progress. We are still working mostly right now on the staffing levels. We have 3 hired for kitchen staff so far. Our goal is to have at least a couple more within the next 2 weeks. So outside of that, we're busy planning menus, but yes, we will be serving lunch one way or another. We'll be in there working hard, and we will definitely be ready to roll come day one.
Good. I didn't know if we had to start packing sandwiches the first couple of days.
That's not our goal.
We'll have a menu.
Thank you.
Thank goodness.
Welcome.
We're happy to see
And
you.
welcome, Mr. Halpin. Wonderful.
Yes.
Did Molly want to make any further?
I don't know, Molly, did you want to say anything? A few words?
I suppose we should give John another chance to.
Right.
I told you. they were
Hi,
what to
I'm
say.
Molly Bremner. I have been in the position for about a month. I've been able to overlap with Michelle Otis and John Robert. John and I are doing some more grant work tomorrow, so getting plenty of support there. I've met and been in contact with the CPAC president, various families, and staff. We're onboarding the dyslexia guidance, and that work is going really well. I'm really happy with the support and steps that Hatfield Elementary has been taking, and I think that work will be just really easy to implement. And it's nice to be back in the Valley. I was in Sunderland for 5 years, so I'm glad I went off and gained leadership experience and came back to the Valley because it's gorgeous. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
It's so good to meet you both. All right. Any further questions for the superintendent or our new directors? No? All right. Well, we appreciate the both of you, especially coming to our meeting today. And thank you to Mr. Wood.
Actually, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Are we doing like a meet and greet of all the new people? Do we decide on that? Because I'm sure folks of the community might probably want to meet you and Molly and.
Oh, I'm happy to plan one.
Yeah.
My intention was
I
to
can-
attend like the open houses and so forth, so that I could be part of those. But we could do something separate and.
Yeah, I think it would be, I mean, it's been
past
about a
years,
month or so
Something
since
that-
somebody has
something
mentioned
that
it to
we've
me,
done in
but.
past years is,
Yeah.
like at the next school committee meeting, we open it up 15 or half an hour early
Mhm.
and have a casual meet and greet before the meeting
Oh, wonderful.
starts.
We could do that, that'd be
Yeah,
good.
that would be nice as
Something
well.
to-
Because you would be
Put it
attending the
outside.
meeting anyway, and then maybe
Yeah,
people
do
stay
something
for the
outside.
meeting.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're-
Maybe a front lawn kind of a thing.
Oh,
Take it
that'd be nice.
outside.
Be nice, yeah.
Especially if it's a night like tonight.
Right.
Otherwise,
Or
I-
cooler would be nice too.
I hear we're
Nice breeze.
pretty experienced with tents, but
Sorry.
I think that's a great idea.
I know.
We're going to move on in our agenda.
Aren't we
I was an
allowed to
audience of two.
giggle?
Need a gavel. Okay. That's fine. Next, we would like to hear from Smith Academy and our principal, Chris Buckland.
Just looking down, I think I can jump and quickly send apologies from Charlotte Kavanagh, who's unable to make it. She's playing field hockey tonight, so
No problem.
she's
Thank you.
unable to make it. So I'm hoping that she'll be able to make the next one. And again, I just reiterate what a great team we're forming already over such a short period of time. It's really good to get and work with Mr. Halpin, Ms. Bremner, and Mr. Wood as well. This year has been a slightly different summer compared to last year, but I anticipate that we'll have to be flexible and pivot, etc. During the year. Better get my glasses on, really. So our homecoming award winners, Mark and Mike, have been getting the building ready, and that involves reorganising the school completely, basically, and it'll be nice to be in a situation where we can refer to staff and know that they'll be in a particular part of the building, at least for the beginning of the year. The annual fire inspections took place early last week, and we'll be having the emergency, our kind of yearly EMR planning meeting next week with the police, fire chief, and the state troopers. So in terms of like the structural organisation, we're very much on target there. As Mr. Wood talked about earlier on, we're working on our back to school district plan, influenced a lot by the PNAS and SPIFFy survey from last year, acceleration, not remediation from DESE, as well as our own social emotional surveys that we carried out throughout the year. So we're trying to anticipate and keep ahead of what we need to do. And the Smith Academy back to school plan is largely encapsulated in the school improvement plan on the website, but it's looking at SEL, identifying supporting gaps, continue to support staff and students with project-based learning, and continuing to make more robust our work-based learning and internships. I said all the right words, but not necessarily in the right order. You rearrange what I'm saying. And just in terms of the students, it's been great to have students back in the building. Lots of grade 11 and grade 12 have been helping Mr. Duval prepare Chromebooks for the district as part of their National Honours Community Service Hours. And this is a plug, if you have any contacts or anybody that has work to be done, we've got lots of willing students who need the hours. Please harass me. I know that they're working with Geraldine and the Council of Aging a bit later on in the year as well. And the other thing is it's really good to see some of the boys' basketball team using the gym in the summer to get the rust off before November. And I reiterate that, one of our goals this year is to increase the ways that the community can use and utilise the building. So I'd encourage anybody interested with the facilities to talk to Christy and get a building uses form and go forward from there. I know that the rec department worked really well with the field hockey, and that's something we want to kind of continue with other sports this year. Students and families new to Smith Academy have an orientation next Friday, and that's where we'll be able to taste the delights of Mr. Halpin in the kitchen there. So I'm looking forward to that. I think he's been watching a lot of Gordon Ramsay, right? To prepare. No. And so lots of information relating to new students is going out tomorrow in the Thursday emails. And as Mr. Wood pointed out, we're in the final stages of hiring the band and music teacher, and I'm delighted that we've got 5 or 6 students involved in that process, as well as a couple of members of staff. And I think it's good to get a whole community shape or input, involvement in that process. And just quick community news, Judy Strong has been doing a great job of working for the field hockey introduction program with Hadley, and again that's through the rec department, and there'll be some exciting news about an alumni field hockey legends game in the fall, so watch that space. And everybody who knows Northampton knows that we're the reigning demolition derby bus champions, a 2-year stretch dating back from August 2019. There was one last year, but it's 2 years. And the sports teams, as a bonding exercise, will be painting a demolition derby to us, ready to retain our crown, I'm hoping, on the Saturday of Labour Day weekend. And I just wanted to mention again a great thanks to John Robert for his help with the grant writing. We might find them, but we don't really know what we're doing with them. So John's very good at helping, definitely in my case, write some of the grants. So really hats off and thanks to him. And upcoming dates, student return on 26th of August, open evening September the 9th, and homecoming October 16th. That's my report.
When are you decorating the bus?
I think next week, 24th to 26th, they decorate, and then they race. Fortunately / unfortunately, staff don't have to volunteer to drive, so we have a driver, but I'm confident that we'll have a good one. I hope, anyway.
They wouldn't let you drive.
They wouldn't let me drive, no. I drive on the other side.
drive.
I drive on the other side. There's no gear stick. Yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yes.
Do committee members have questions for Mr. Buckler?
I do have a question, but it's not specifically for you.
Okay.
You mentioned that the fire department came in and did the safety check. Was that also, in the past, the buildings are inspected by Board of Health and, I don't know, is it the building inspector? Have those been done?
Not yet. Oh,
I don't
No,
know.
I mean, I'll talk to the Board of Health tomorrow. There's a meeting and I'm attending, so I'll ask them when they're coming in. And double check on the building inspector, but they haven't reached out to me and I haven't reached out to them as of yet.
Okay. I know,
We know we need the Board of Health for the
to
food
get it
services.
done
Yes.
not
Right.
too close to the beginning of
Right.
school, because it has happened that
There's issues.
the day before school opens, they might find something, and we all panicked. So I just was wondering when it was scheduled.
yeah, typically we would have the EMR meeting, and at that meeting, we would then arrange with the Board of Health
Got
to
it.
do their walkthrough and what have you. And also in anticipation of perhaps some specific guidelines coming out in relation to health and safety as well. I know that, for example, water fountains are still covered. So, you know, it's largely a lot of superficial similarities between now and last year in terms of the building, apart from classrooms and things like that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I guess I have a general question, and you guys could take it separately or you could take it together. As you've made plans, and Chris, you kind of alluded to pivoting, and I really hoped we would never have to use that word again, but I know you guys are proactive in making plans. Can you speak to anything that you're already planning to keep from last year's health and safety plans? I know we're looking at policy stuff, but do you have plans? Is it, Madam Chair, you may want to defer this question until after policy conversations, but I think there are a number of parents who are curious to understand, like, what does the lunch schedule look like? Is it look like it did last year or 2 years ago? And how are any of those changes planned for day one at this point? Is it too soon to speak to that?
It's probably a little too soon to speak to
That's
that because
fine.
we want to get direction from you on the policy. To be specific, I mean, because we can go either down two different pathways. Suffice it to say, our goal is, and again, a word I want to not have to use very often, we want to get back to as much as possible what normal looks like for school and education, learning what we can from what we've experienced, but trying to make sure that it's as social and engaging, especially the times that are supposed to be social and engaging. So, but we don't have specific schedules as of yet.
So switching classes,
Switching
all of that
classes
is
is
planned to be
on.
normal.
Right.
Yeah.
And some of what you were talking about with the reopening plan, if I'm understanding correctly, is referring to like DESI's acceleration roadmap
Right.
and more teaching related rather
Correct.
than health and safety related.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
I mean, there are definitely sort of mitigating things that we can do, washing hands, using sanitizer, getting into good habits there, the vampire cough, et cetera, et cetera. But then I think it would do you not have
Never
that
heard that before. I like it.
Okay, well, maybe it's in English. I don't know. But then it's also things that we can do, like we can continue pretty seamlessly to look at the UVing and fogging and things like that. So some of the basic mitigation sort of strategies there, but I think I'd defer to Mr.
I mean, I'm assuming we did things like replace the HEPA filter in the machines and that they'll be running in classrooms again, and all those things happened.
Right.
Okay.
Water fountains isn't a thing yet?
So I think that's a Board of Health piece.
That was driven by the Board of Health.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So I'll hear more about that tomorrow.
Okay.
But they're not uncovered as of yet.
Okay.
One more.
Go ahead.
Are Google Classrooms going to remain just having the digital space there and perhaps assignments being posted there? Is that going to continue?
Yeah, I think I think the staff did a great job across both schools, and I speak to Smith Academy, taking on such an enormous technological leap in some cases and kind of students as well, and parents and families as well, becoming accustomed to using Google Classroom and Google Documents, etc. So I think it makes sense, especially now we're coming back in and we can actually start to think about the pedagogical approach of project-based learning, collaborative learning, working in groups and shared documents and things like that, to have that as a kind of a house for a lot of the classroom content area. And it would make sense to continue with that trajectory of development.
It was kind of nice to see it as a parent, to have it,
definitely.
the visual there.
Yeah.
But I was also thinking that it would be practical to keep it in case we ever, God forbid, have to. I know, but that it's already there. That the teachers are already having it ready.
Everybody's still, we
That's
kept the
awesome.
Google Classes when we came back in April, and we're going to be continuing with that. The teachers are, I think, fully conversant with that as a
As of now, no.
What's their
we cannot.
guidance, right?
So our plan is to manage each individual student case and treat it as we need to. So the Google Classroom would come in handy so that the student could follow along at home.
At home, yeah.
Great.
Okay, all right. I think next we will hear about Hatfield Elementary School from Dr. Driscoll.
All right, thank you. So I'm happy to be here in August, getting ready for the year. So thanks for having me. As both Chris and Michael have said, we're currently hiring for open positions. Feeling very confident that the vacancies will be filled with very high quality candidates. I've been working quite a bit with Molly on some of that. It's been really great working with her. And you know, as Chris alluded to, you know, really good feel for the admin team here getting into the year. Class lists and assignments were sent out last week, not like homework assignments, but assignments to classes. And teachers have begun communicating with families of kids on their rosters. We're still finalizing pre-K assignments, and we'll be communicating those lists to families as soon as we're able. They start a little bit later than the rest of the school, so there's a little more time there. It's been great seeing so many people in the school this summer. Teachers have been in really since mid-July, getting ready in their classrooms, preparing for a more normal start to the year. Our custodians, Bill and Bob, have been just amazing. They've had just a monumental effort to, if anyone was in our cafeteria last year, they saw everything we had removed from the classrooms and put in the cafeteria to make room for all the spacing. So it was on them to return all of that stuff to the classrooms, and they have returned all of those things. They have waxed all the floors. It just looks great. So it's really a nice looking school to be able to go back into in the fall. We were able to run 3 summer acceleration academies. That's the named DESI term them this summer, which was really nice. As in addition to our extended year programs through the Office of Special Education. Those academies were focused on either math specific or ELA specific skills. And were a really kind of intensive 20-hour kind of hands-on, minds-on experience for students. And most of all, from what I was able to see when I was in there, they were fun. It was really, you know, there was a lot of laughter, and it was really great to see what the kids were working on. In addition, we've had students in the summer for our extended year programs in all grade levels and preschool. And the rec program has been at the school out back and utilizing the school a bit. So it's been really nice to see so many people in the school. It feels like it should feel, which is good. I've received quite a few questions about before and after care at HES this year. So we have contracted with the Collaborative for Educational Services out of Northampton to run the programs. Last week in my newsletter, I was able to send out the pre-registration form to families. We started receiving those back, which has been great. We had been looking and have been looking at a start date of September 6th for the after-school program. Staffing has continued to be a challenge. So I've been in pretty much daily communication with Chris Taggart at the Collaborative. Currently, we've hired a coordinator for the program, but we are still in need of activity leaders to be there every day to help run the program. So we have reached out to the community via Facebook, through School Spring, to local colleges, and beyond, and it still continues to be a challenge. So the Chris, not Chris, but Chris Taggart from the collaborative, he's confident that we'll be able to run a robust program starting early this fall. It's likely that we might be looking at a slight delay to the start date. That was the last communication I had from him. So it may be not the 6th. It might be the following week. But we're hoping, and he's confident, and this is what he does, that we'll be able to have it up and running soon. And once that after-school program is running and able to move forward, we'll be looking at getting a before-school program running too, for that chunk of time before in the morning for parents to be able to drop their kids off and then get to work. This is what Chris does. And so I'll defer to his kind of expertise in making it work, and we'll keep on looking to staff that. So I'll also put in a plug here if anyone who's listening is interested in being an after-school activity coordinator. Please be in touch. Last year with the school council, we worked to develop a school improvement plan for this year and the years going forward. So there are 6 areas of focus for the school improvement plan, and they do align as well to the acceleration roadmap that has been promoted. So those 6 areas are an improved structure for literacy instruction, continued excellence in writing, improved math teaching and learning, social emotional learning post-pandemic, a focus on anti-racism, diversity and inclusion instruction, and improved capacity for teacher leadership. And so we'll be looking to utilize those kind of 6 focus areas as we think about planning professional development as we head into and throughout this year. I almost forgot to mention it, but thanks for Chris for reminding me. He is going to have some competition at the demo bus derby this year, because Hatfield Elementary will also have a bus. We got to figure out when they're going to go and how they're going to go paint the bus. So we'll be in touch about that with folks. And lastly, I think I'd like to think I speak for almost or nearly everyone, probably everyone at HES, when I say that we're really excited to return to a school year that is more normal this year. There's a lot of really important, really hard work to be done, and we look forward to doing it in the best way that we know we can do. And so I think things are looking up for this year. And that's all I have.
Have you reached out to the high school for before and after care?
Yes. Yeah. So we will do again. Yeah. We
got a lot of really great counselors.
Yeah, and I think we will be sending that out again as well. So last year we had some interest from them, and I think a lot of those kids have graduated and will be in college, but we have a whole new group coming up. So.
I'm curious, Connor, is CES having this kind of difficulty staffing in other communities? Because I know they run programs all over.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard, and I haven't gotten specific data about the Southampton one and others, is that hiring is pretty tight a lot of places right now. And so this is one of those spots. One of our folks who was in the school last year on a temporary position is returning to be the coordinator, which is wonderful. And that's the hardest position to fill. So the coordinator position is the hardest one to fill. And so that's done, which is great. So now we just need kind of a bank of activity leaders and hopefully a few kind of subs in case someone is out.
As you're seeking people that might be interested in those positions, it would be helpful for people to know what the hourly rate pays for that job. I personally wonder if they can't fill it, if they might need to find a way to offer a little more.
Sure.
Because I think parents are reasonably, understandably getting a little panicked about whether they have after-school care. So I think we may start to lose parents who have to go find another, they have to solve it. And the closer we get to the day it needs to start, the more of them that will have solved it, and then we may not be able to have enough people to put a program together. And I don't think any of us want that. And I know you don't, and I appreciate all that you guys are doing to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think some of that information is on the posting itself.
I
or
looked, because
it's
I
out
was
there?
going to refer someone to it, and I was like, I couldn't find anywhere it was posted.
Okay.
And I went to, as if I was going to apply for it, and I couldn't find what it paid, which seems problematic.
I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
it's an hourly rate thing, you don't think they tell you?
I can certainly touch base with him and see if that's possible to do.
Well, and it sounds, I mean, it's not like it's particular to us, so I get that they're having a hard time.
All right. Any further questions for Dr. Driscoll from the school committee? All right. Well, thank you to our entire administrative team for your reports. And as we said, or as Mr. Buckland already mentioned, Charlotte Kavanaugh, our student representative, could not make it tonight, so we hope that we will hear from her at the next meeting. We will now move in the agenda to our policy updates. If Chris and Connor are open to staying, I think that would be great. If you could stay for this portion. We will be discussing policy EBC supplemental in regards to reopening school. Just to start us off, the policy subcommittee consists of myself and Jennifer Maloney, along with Superintendent Wood. We did meet last week to consider the DESE guidance that was recently published, as well as other public health guidance. And we made some preliminary edits to policy EBC supplemental for the committee's consideration and discussion. So this is we sort of had a preliminary meeting regarding this. We would like to hear feedback from the school committee, and we have also heard feedback from the community, which is great. There will not be a vote on this policy tonight, but we'll have an opportunity for discussion. And then the policy subcommittee does plan on meeting again for any additional edits, and then we plan to vote on this at our next meeting. So with that said,
Could you say when the next meeting is?
Yeah.
Perhaps people want to know.
sorry about that, August 23rd. Let me double check, hold on.
yeah, that's what I have.
You're talking about the policy meeting.
I was talking about the school committee meeting
Yeah.
with a
When's
vote.
the
Were you
policy
asking
meeting?
about the policy subcommittee?
I was asking when the next school committee meeting is that we would potentially be voting on
Yep.
this.
August 23rd, unless the committee tonight decides that we want to schedule an additional meeting next week, but policy is not meeting until Tuesday.
Okay, I mean, I guess we can get into more conversation, but I'm thinking that, I mean, they're waiting to send out stuff, and then to have to send it out 3 days before we start school might be.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's up
Inconsiderate.
to the committee if we want to try to schedule another meeting for next week, but policy is meeting on Tuesday. Additionally, we did reach out to the Board of Health for their guidance and also to clarify the person who will, or people who will be advising the schools regarding health and safety this year. And they are meeting on that tomorrow. So we do have incomplete recommendations from the Board of Health at this time, and that could absolutely change things, which is yet another reason why we'll not be holding a vote on this tonight. With that said, the school committee has the preliminary edits made by the policy subcommittee. There were some, small changes made to the beginning, just sort of small edits. And on the updates to current policy section, again, small edits just to align ourselves with DESE's current guidance. For example, regarding, remote learning is not currently an option according to DESE, so we removed some language there. But the majority of the edits and the consideration for tonight is regarding the face coverings section of the policy. So do you want to add anything?
No, I would just say that, our goal is to write a policy that allows us to open with as much focus on staying open for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's really where we're headed.
Yep, and I think that, when the policy committee met to discuss this, that really was, again, our focus is, having our students in the building, ensuring that we can stay in the building, and elevating the learning environment to one that is effective academically and in terms of social emotional learning. Yeah, so I think I will open it up to the committee.
I have a
Yep.
clarifying question.
Sure.
Not,
Yep.
Are all of the changes reflected with, so that we can see where the changes are? There's
So we
strikeouts and.
strike through or italics.
Okay.
Yep.
So just double checking that that's in there.
That's a
Sometimes it's a
great-
little hard to spot.
Yeah, we purposefully did that rather than using color or
Sure,
something
thank
that
you.
wouldn't show up.
Is there anything in here about the distance of desks in the rooms? I didn't immediately see it.
So under process, we just have social distancing to the extent possible,
Possible.
including spacing between stationary desks, but we do not define a number
So
for that.
today, as the classrooms have been set up, what are they distanced at? 3 feet?
I don't think
or
we've gone
what's
with any
available?
particular number.
It's-
Okay.
We're trying to focus on being as interactive as possible and as safe as possible, but with no specific guidance from DESE to do it differently. So we're going to try to, if they want groups, they can have groups.
Right. I was going to say, we're not limited to everyone rowed up, facing
Right.
forward.
Right.
We want it to be a
So
more normal environment.
little kids are back to tables and groups and stations and
If they had them before.
if they were before.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And some old.
I'm not being ageist on that. Anybody that needs to do groups.
I think that we keep referring that we're following DESE guidance, but we're not following DESE guidance in this policy in regards to masks.
So referring to the fact that the policy subcommittee did recommend requiring masks at this time.
Yeah.
Is there a specific portion?
I mean, we say that we're following DESE guidance throughout the thing, and then we're not following DESE guidance when we talk about face coverings. I would feel more comfortable with a strong recommendation rather than a mandate. So
Yeah,
that's my input.
I do think that that is actually something that the policy subcommittee discussed, is the fact that we sometimes get slightly different recommendations from different advisory bodies. So we do refer to DESE guidance, but we also refer to the CDC and DPH, all of whom are currently issuing slightly different guidelines. So the CDC right now is recommending universal masking within schools. DESE came short of a requirement, but did in bold and underline, literally in the announcement, bolded and underlined, saying
Strongly
it was strongly
recommended.
recommended. Right. So I think just when we discussed it in policy, we were trying to draw attention to the numerous public health groups that,
Was that a unanimous decision, or was that not?
it was agreed upon in the policy subcommittee.
So they would come out
Right.
to vote. But to be fair, I don't think it's unanimous among the policymakers.
That's what's my question.
You mean like DESE and DPH? or
No,
us?
You and
you
Jennifer.
three.
We didn't hold a formal vote on it because we wanted to present forward to the committee.
Okay.
To hear where people are at.
I think I would just say that one of the things about DESE's recommendation, where it says strongly recommended, there is the issue of managing, something, and there is value to the absolute, just in terms of managing that, and there's also a bit of a window of time where things are changing rapidly, and I suspect that DESE will have different guidance in 2 weeks.
Quite possibly.
And that would be
Quite
fine. So
possibly.
couldn't we say we would follow DESE guidance instead of writing mandate so that we don't have to come back and fix it, or?
If that's the group that DESE wants to the school committee wants to purely put its,
Say that we're
Fine.
only going to be listening
Right,
to whatever
DESE.
DESE says, rather than a
I have a
possibility.
question.
Sure.
Is it possible to still do 3-foot distancing in classrooms or not? I mean,
I don't have the physical measurements of every room. I think that it depends on the room and the number of kids that we have going into that room. I'm sure at the high school and middle school, class sizes vary depending on subject area. I know we have different class sizes, K to 6, so there may be some rooms where we can do it, but not all.
Yeah, I think we could get close to 3 feet. I would say if we're considering an either or, having 3 feet of distance between desks puts significant limits on room structures, and I think is more detrimental to learning than mask wearing.
I don't fully agree with that. I have kiddos that have social pragmatic communication disorder, which means that they have difficulty reading social cues and engaging that way. Wearing the mask is extremely difficult for them. It makes it that much harder. It gives them only the eyes to pick up on any social cues, and that's hard. I fully support health safety, but I want to be sure that we are also looking at mental health safety. And some of these kids are struggling with masks for different reasons. Whether they have to wear them and it's distracting to them. I know some of the kids are troopers and that's amazing, but some of them are struggling. And some of them are struggling because others are masked and they can't engage with them like they used to. They can't see their friends, they can't do things. I wish there was a happy medium, a compromise of having masks, but having more opportunities to not mask. If they are in a classroom that the desks are 3 feet apart and they're all stationary, focused on a lesson, that perhaps it would be okay. It'd be like a mask break, that they're not moving, they're not doing anything, that they could remove their masks if they choose. If they have to move around in the classroom, if they have to go out into the hall, whatever, yes, masks are on. But if there are more opportunities for some of these kiddos to see faces. I mean, I said to you today that Haley didn't recognize you because she only knows you as having a full mask on. And she goes, it kind of looked like my principal, but I'm not sure. You know, that's unfortunate. And some of these younger kids really need a little more visual faces.
I think with the challenge with the 3 feet is, I mean, a typical classroom, and it's difficult to generalize because there are no typically designed classrooms at Smith. They're very different. A typical classroom at 3 feet holds 11 people. At 6 feet holds 11 people. At 3 feet it holds 17. And if we've got a roster of 22, then we've got to look at, okay, so what do we do? Do we go back to overflow rooms? Do we look at staffing? Do we have it's
I
a
get
huge,
it. I know there's no
yeah.
easy answer, but I just wanted to express that concern that I have about.
I needed to kind of put the
Yeah.
practical aspect in as
I
well.
understand
it's a
that, but I
challenge both
just,
ways.
I wish there was some other way that we could.
There are clear masks. I don't know if you use them at all. Yeah, I mean, there's the shield, but there's also the clear mask. So a lot of speech and language teachers have their students, when they're in the session, use those. So we could certainly look into those. Either the family can or we can.
I think it's also fair to talk about our community and like Carrie had said, sorry, Carrie, that we've only had 2 cases in the last 60 days in town, and people have been going about their business as per usual, at least from what I can see. And what I can speak to is the rec program. Most have not been wearing, actually, I think all of them haven't been wearing masks. Haven't been socially distanced, have been in the gym, have been out of the gym. I also had a child in both of the programs that were really great. And it was about 50-50 on who wore masks and who didn't, and we haven't had any issues. So I think that we're in Hatfield. We have less than 400 kids in the district. If anybody can do this, Hatfield can. I don't think it's fair to compare, because I'm waiting for that, you know, Frontier might be wearing masks, Springfield's wearing masks, Holyoke's wearing masks. I don't think it's fair to compare because we're not anywhere near what they are. So I think that we can strongly recommend, and I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised to see that there will be a lot of masks still. So. And I won't vote for a mandate, so it's probably obvious. But I won't approve a mandate.
So I was glad to see the policy continues to support students who have a reason to not wear a mask, still have that option. And so I know we've heard from some parents who spoke to how their kid struggles to wear a mask. And I had to question, you know, given my understanding of the policy, why that student wouldn't have qualified for an exemption. Not my job to get into that, but definitely people need to understand that there are cases where absolutely we should not ask that student to wear a mask. It's not a reasonable thing. And honestly, as I look at whether we go back with, you know, to Jean's Swiss cheese, which layers of cheese we're gonna add in here, I have a lot of concern for the kids who cannot mask. They have to be in school. There's no remote option. Everybody's going. They have to be there. They have a medical reason they can't mask. And so the best thing our community can do for them is that everybody else who can mask, wear a mask. I don't think a strong recommendation will cut it. One of the things I'm most concerned about is I read through people's concerns, and they vary. And the reasons why people don't want a mask vary. I keep coming back to...
I don't think it comes to not wanting to mask. I think it comes down to the
mandate.
We're mandating folks. Yeah.
Right. So I hear that. My sense is that many of those who don't want a mandate would not have their children in a mask. Maybe not universally true, when I've tried to discern that as I read, because I think that's part of the, you know, part of the picture. But as I have read through all of this, I keep coming back to where's our focus and what are we really paying attention to? And my hope is that we're really, we're helping to ensure that every kid has the best chance for the best education while we're still in a pandemic. And so while 18 months ago, a year ago, the idea of those kids being 3 feet apart would have made me and many other parents a little anxious based on what we knew. I'm glad to hear that the centers are coming back for whatever age, and they can do groups. I'm glad that we're giving educators some flexibility on things that we really didn't feel we could be flexible with before. And so I feel like as I look at some of these changes, even changing, you know, stripping out what constitutes a mask. The first time I read that, I was like, why would we say a scarf was okay if it's going to be a mask? It's like, okay, we're allowing for some flexibility, and still, if everybody's in a mask, that's still it's still catching large particles, which is reducing some aerosol. And I'm looking at Jean because Jean will know this far better than I will. But I keep coming back to how do we best educate everybody? And if you can't wear a mask, and we're going to now expose you to Delta, how many, you know, and you catch something, my fear is less about the mortality rates, because many people who are against the mandate are like, kids aren't dying from this. It's like, well, there are some kids who die from this, and there are some kids who are hospitalized, and there are some kids who just get sick like a cold. But you know what? For every one of those kids who gets sick like a cold, they're still going to be quarantining, would be my understanding. And so we're still looking at every kid that catches this, even if they're asymptomatic or have mild symptoms, that they're going to be out of school. They're going to be out of school for 10 days, 14 days, depending on when that is caught. And that's not the best education for that student. And that's really not the best education for anybody else in that student's class, because they don't have their whole class there. So I'm all for doing everything that's reasonable to make sure that we get open together and we stay open together. And I think and that we're asking our teachers to focus on teaching. And I think that's sort of my third thing that I'm really concerned with, that if we don't make it a mandate, and I get that that's a tough word, but when we don't make the rules apply to everyone, we're putting our educators in the position of having to be the hall monitors of masks. And every time a teacher has to like figure out, well, does this student have to wear it and this one doesn't? And like at that point, we either are letting every kid make a decision about the health of everybody else in their class, or we're making a teacher take time away from learning and teaching to talk about, you need to put your mask on. Anytime the rules are different for every kid, it's just, it makes it that much harder. And we have, let's not kid ourselves, we have a lot of rules when you go to school. Nobody gets to do anything and everything they want. And so, you know what? I am a big fan of flip-flops, but I can't wear them when I go to class because it's in the student handbook that we don't wear flip-flops. I like flip-flops, but I don't feel infringed upon that I don't get to wear my flip-flops. And I'm not trying to make so much light of it, but
we can talk all night. I'm just never going to be on your page, and it's fine.
I know.
We're just going to be in circles, so I won't
Teachers
vote for a mandate.
have to, did you use the word police about the mask?
No, I would not
I
use
didn't
that
think
word.
You did, but what are you?
They're not going to, I just don't want them to be the hall monitor of masking.
Okay.
And so they are
But
the hall monitors of all
even with
kinds
a
of things.
mandate, to some extent, teachers have to say, you know, Susie, you need to keep that mask up, you know,
so
put your mask back on, Susie, or, you know.
That's fair, and I was really curious about that. And so I reached out to a number of teachers, particularly those in the elementary side, because that's really my bigger concern, because older kids do have some options for vaccination that the little kids don't. And so I reached out, and to a teacher, every one of them said, my students don't have a problem wearing masks. Like, they didn't have a difficulty. And even, I think if they did, they had a rule to say, you know what, the rule in school is we wear the mask. Unless it's in your IEP or you've got a doctor's note or whatever the reason, you wear your mask. So I just think in terms of focusing on the best education for all, we keep students in because and I think one of the things, masks work. And we know this in part because we didn't have a big flu season last year. We had more kids in school. So when we do this, we get to keep our kids learning in person in school. And to those who are also concerned about, I'll shut up after this, I promise you.
I'm just saying,
social emotional health.
It's not going to be great. You don't, right?
Nothing's perfect right now. Nothing's going to be perfect.
We should wear helmets.
No, I'm not asking for helmets. I'm not asking for 6 feet. Although there are days helmets might not be a bad idea.
I'm just saying.
I think in terms of those concerned about social emotional health, I'm not looking to diminish that. But I do think that being in person with your classmates for the whole year has a greater reward socially than if we have a bunch of kids sick and out, even if they're not life-threateningly sick. So,
but I think we're still going to follow, if you're sick, you stay home.
Yes.
You have to get a negative COVID test. You know, your family members are staying home until you have that negative COVID test, then they can go back.
I think masking helps us avoid more of that. And so it's the simplest thing we can do, and it's the front line of defense for our 3 to 11-year-olds.
So I want to shift just a little bit then. It was a good segue. From the 3 to 11-year-olds to the older kids, because DESE and DPH recommend schools allow vaccinated students to remain unmasked.
And you
So,
can't ask their vaccination status, so we'd have to say strongly recommend. 'Cause you can't
Right, but-
technically,
but they are
but they're allowed.
allowing,
Yep.
this recommendation is they allow vaccinated students to remain unmasked.
Correct.
So if we consider that into this policy, would we do something different for Smith Academy?
So that is something that we discussed
I'm
and
sure
did
that
not
you
come
did,
to a
which is what-
conclusion on.
Which is why I brought
Yeah,
it up, because I
exactly.
figured you did discuss that.
Yeah, absolutely. So first things first, thank you to the committee members for your comments. I know we're going to continue this discussion. I will say that I'm sure you noted that we did lighten the language around a lot of the mask wearing to make, accommodations more accessible and, allow for greater social and emotional interactions for different events. So we did expand some of the language there. But I would like to hear from our administrative team and from Nurse Hobby regarding their health and safety recommendations on this topic.
Great, thank you. Actually, maybe, Jean, do you want to start, since you've been patient?
You've been so patient, Jean.
The mask hides a lot, so. Thank you. I am not a teacher, so a couple of you saw me last year where I wrote down everything I wanted to say, so that's what I have. Thank you for inviting me to speak. As a disclaimer, please note that one college microbiology course does not make this nurse an expert on science or anything else. Like all of you, I have had to study and learn as much as I can about COVID, the science process, and our social responses. We've learned that this novel coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, first identified in China in December of 2019, had within a couple of months spread to nearly every country in early 2020. Several viral mutations have since been identified with the variant label applied only to those changes that have shown measurable impact on transmissibility, disease presentation, or treatment strategies. We know now that pharmaceutical efforts focused on developing vaccines for one of the earliest of these new variants, the Alpha variant, first identified in Great Britain. Fast forward to December 2020, when the strain of an even more significant variant of concern, the Delta variant, was first identified in India. We all soon witnessed the devastation caused to the people of India, while early vaccination efforts in our country began to finally show decreasing rates of infection. At first, this summer, Delta devastation has overwhelmed certain parts of our own country, with rising rates of infection noted nearby. Nearly all Massachusetts counties are now considered to be substantial or high risk for transmission, with Hampshire County being the lone exception as a moderate risk at this point. And I'd like to point out that both Franklin County and Hampden County are considered to be high risk. We're continuing to learn and may even be weary about COVID news. But because scientists must publish the bad as well as the good, the learning at times is understandably challenging. It takes time for enough evidence-based, peer-reviewed research to eventually become public health policy, or often to change accepted public health policy. It helps to focus on what we know and don't yet know. We know that all viruses need a host to replicate. We humans are the host and the means of COVID transmission. Since the beginning of this pandemic, scientists have been stressing the importance of large-scale vaccinations for those who are eligible to promote herd immunity. That is, to decrease the number of potential hosts where the virus can mutate and potentially develop into variants resistant to these vaccines. Most recently, we learned that the highly transmissible Delta variant can be transmitted from asymptomatic individuals who have already been fully vaccinated. Some of us vaccinated folks may be unknowing spreaders of Delta to those at risk and to those who are unable to be vaccinated. We don't know yet if Delta or other emerging variants may cause some previously vaccinated individuals to become seriously ill. So far, thankfully, the vaccines help healthy vaccinated persons avoid serious illness or hospitalization. However, these breakthrough infections may cause vaccinated persons who have underlying medical conditions to become seriously ill. We neither know how well the vaccines protect people with weakened immune systems, nor how long COVID-19 vaccines will protect those who are already vaccinated. We also know that using only one public health strategy is not nearly as effective as using all possible strategies and continuing to battle the pandemic. While we are all eager to see emergency use authorization of vaccines for children under the age of 12, it's important to recognize that clinical trials take time, a large number of volunteers, and a representative group to identify as many potential side effects as possible. Thanks to the large infusion of funding and collaboration in 2020, prior research on similar coronavirus outbreaks, such as the first SARS outbreak in 2003 and the MERS epidemic in 2012, and decades of prior use of mRNA and adenovirus technologies, strong foundations were already in place for developing and testing the vaccines we are now so fortunate to have today. If we're eligible and able to do so, it's important to get vaccinated. Last year, we learned that safety and in-person learning don't have to be mutually exclusive. Families and staff all worked hard to provide as safe an environment as possible in Hatfield Public Schools. Parents discussed household concerns with school nurses and consistently followed through with testing and, as needed, quarantining or isolation. They kept their sick students at home and submitted those daily symptom checklists, often being creative in checking their students while at the drop-off lines. Staff consistently helped students to follow the health and safety strategies. Teachers even organized scheduling buddies to scour the vaccination scheduling sites at midnight to book elusive vaccine appointments for each other. Teachers wanted to teach. Students did their part by following universal, time-honored public health strategies such as masking, hand sanitizing, and distancing to mitigate the spread of the virus. While none of these strategies alone is 100% effective, the combination of all strategies, including wearing masks when indoors, greatly reduced the risk of transmission and allowed Hatfield Public Schools to fully reopen their doors to in-person learning. It is precisely because of these layered Swiss cheese efforts that we had no cases of in-school transmission last school year. Removing these public health measures for the 2021 school year may increase the risk of an outbreak, which could potentially cause the closing of a classroom, grade, or school, thus placing further unpredictable burdens on families. Postponing mask mandates until local case rates begin to rise places the district in a potentially reactive position, just as the rapidly transmissible Delta variant is in our region. And as I mentioned before, with the exception of Hampshire County that's currently at moderate risk, most of Massachusetts is either substantial or high risk. Individuals not yet eligible, medically unable to be vaccinated, or hesitant are all at higher risk. I strongly urge and applaud any and all proactive efforts employed by the school committee to help everyone keep the school doors open for in-person learning. Using safe and supportive measures to help everyone stay safe will greatly reduce the risk of transmission and help learning to occur. I ask that the committee support having the town continue to fund the Board of Health COVID coordinator position. The individuals who served in this role last year, in particular Carrie, played an important role in helping Hatfield Public School families directly affected by COVID, provided contact tracing, and educating those we all serve as true partners in health. I respectfully ask that the school committee continue to support and promote the DESE-funded, new name, routine COVID safety checks, formerly known as pooled testing. And Michael and I and Martha Elliott sat in on a training on that today where they announced this. As this additional public health strategy can help school nurses identify asymptomatic infected individuals sooner, a critical step with this current variant, thus providing earlier access to healthcare supports for the families we all serve. Finally, I ask that the committee resume all safety strategies, including indoor masking. While mask mandates alone will not keep everyone safe, they do allow an important layer of protection, along with hand washing, updated air filtration, and cleaning, to greatly reduce the spread of infectious diseases, including COVID. In this way, the schools will be better prepared to provide full in-person learning for all. The people of Hatfield have a long history of working together to help individuals in need. In this case, having everyone work together on safety helps those who are unable to wear a mask or to get vaccinated or who have underlying medical conditions. We have the opportunity to continue working together and using the herd immunity model by masking to help each individual in our schools be safer. Your consideration and continued support are very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Do committee members have questions for Ms. Selby?
Just one.
Sure.
I don't know if I missed it. Did you say there's a cost to the new routine COVID safety checks?
Today they told us that the funding is there, and apparently some of these large dollar federal funds that are filtering down and hopefully filtering down to this local level, that's the impression we were given at the meeting today,
Correct.
right?
They're paying for it.
Yeah. Not us.
Everything.
Not us.
I've read that
Everything.
They're paying for everybody.
I thought so, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify.
We just,
program. Not that my opinion matters back here, but I agree with, I was on the same meeting that Jean is, and being another school district, it's absolutely a program that the school should consider.
Yeah.
Especially for free.
yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Sorry.
Music to my ears. Jane, I just have a quick question. I know that DESE had mentioned that they might be revising the protocols for responding to COVID-19 scenarios. I did not see that, but
It's
you were on the
not
webinar.
out. It's not
Okay.
out yet. And
Dang it.
people were asking
Yeah.
in the chat on the webinar. There were like, what, 800-900 people on the webinar. And they made it very clear that they're going to be publishing something next week.
We should see something the beginning of next week, hopefully before Tuesday.
So to me, depending on the recommendations regarding the DESE protocols for responding to COVID-19 scenarios, that could influence
Of course.
some of the mitigation strategies that we use. For example, last year, if somebody was in close contact, or certainly if there was a positive case, we were shutting down entire rooms and huge portions of the building. Whereas, if DESE does decide to change some of those recommendations, we might consider that when looking at our mitigation strategies. But we'll look forward to more of that.
Thank you. And could I just add that I gave each of you the resources for my little speech. And please feel free. And I sent all of you an email like 15 minutes before I arrived, so hopefully
We
that's there.
appreciate it
Yes.
so much.
Thank you. And if I could just add, I think Mr. Wood's recommendation about the clear mass is a great idea. We looked into this, I don't know, a year and a half ago when the clear masks were brand new. And if I can put in a plug, I think that's right up ESSER 3 funding. If we could, I think it might help address some of the concerns that you brought up. And I hear what you say, because I'm sure that your family's not the only family with that concern.
I know they're not the only
Yeah.
family, yeah.
It's very
And that might be a path to consider.
The, you know, I think the piece that, as a superintendent, the part that I have to, there are several parts of this that I have to be very concerned about, but I do have to be aware that, you know, if we want to keep moving with the goal that we want to have school in session, I need to make sure I have staff to do it. And, you know, we're going to have to take the layered approach to the solution to mitigate, you're talking about mitigation strategies, but to ensure that we're doing the most we can do to keep all of our staff healthy, because substitutes are not out there. We're having difficult time. We have still four openings now for paraprofessionals. We're having difficult time filling those. Once we have them, I want to protect them as best I can. And the mask is one layer, literally, that can help us do that. And one of the things I don't think we talked about was that I think the policy committee discussed that we would look at timelines, that we would have maybe do this for, I said by the first quarter, but our high school and middle and elementary school are in different programs for that. So, you know, pick a date, October 31st, whatever. And we would say, okay, at this time, and we'll set a metric. We'll try to figure out a way to say this at this time.
Another word I don't want to hear.
Sorry.
Pivot and metric. We're not allowed to say those words.
Give me a word. We'll set criteria.
I think
that,
Break would be on my list.
you know, that, you know, we'll set something to say, you know, this is when we can look at looking at all the layers. We could look at less disinfecting, less mask wearing, you know, all the different layers, and start literally peeling them away.
Right, and that is, you know, thank you for bringing that up, because that is something that we discussed in policy, and we had, you know, tentatively said the first quarter, but you're right, the schools are on different schedules. But we, you know, using that maybe for a target date, you know, we were hoping that, you know, we could try to set the policy for this, you know, beginning of the school year, and then have a day or a time frame that we would reevaluate where things are and the ever-evolving nature of the situation.
Right.
We did discuss. So,
Are we going to get the principal's opinions?
I can speak from the elementary. So I think as we look at the recommendations, we have CDC, American Academy of Pediatrics, DESE, Mass Department of Health. They're all in alignment in recommending that students 2 years and older wear masks. At the elementary school in particular, I think it's important to remember that we, you know, as this variant comes out, we're going to be concentrating our unvaccinated population in one building. So that's what we're going to be doing when we have school in person. So I think for me, there are 3 kind of primary reasons to consider a requirement for masks. The first, as I just mentioned, is the recommendation from the experts. In issues that include, you know, science and public health, we should trust them. And in this case, they're in alignment. They recommend that students 2+ wear masks when they're inside. Outside, no, but inside, that's the recommendation. You know, that's why we have those organizations in those bodies. The second piece that I think it's important to remember is that school is not optional. And this year, a remote school is not optional. If we compare the summer programs, they were. So even our extended year programs, the acceleration academies, those are all, you know, things that parents can opt out of. In the fall, that's not an option. School it needs to happen. So in this case, we would be asking parents of immunocompromised students to knowingly send their kids where expertly recommended safety measures are not in place and not being followed if we're not asking for a requirement. And that, it feels like this is just something that we can ask of people who are able. And again, there are provisions for students who are not able, but something that we can ask of folks who are able to do in order to protect everyone, and in order to protect those students who are our most vulnerable students, who may not be able to wear a mask or who may be immunocompromised, and who still need to go to school. I've heard from some folks that this is a risk they're willing to assume. That if I choose to send my student to school without a mask, and as a choice, not as someone who's not able to, but as a choice, that I can assume that risk. But once that starts happening, and we start having a large percentage of people coming in without masks, the risk increases to those students who aren't able to make that choice, who are unable to mask or who are immunocompromised. And so this is something that we can do, a small measure, a small inconvenience that, and I don't like wearing them, but it's something that we can do to protect everyone. And so I think before it was mentioned about wearing a helmet, and it's different than wearing a helmet because, unless you're concerned about smacking your head against someone else.
50,000 deaths happen a year from head injuries.
But unless you're concerned about smacking your head against someone else, that's the difference here, because we are all breathing the same air. But I think the third and the most important piece here, and that's been said a number of times, is that we want school open. And this is a way that we can do that. We saw how successful the mitigation measures were last year. And so, and one of those big mitigation factors was masks. And so, as we see a more contagious variant coming out, as we want to return to as normal classroom setups as possible, and as we want to return to normal school, and as we're concentrating our unvaccinated population together under one building, it seems like it would be counterintuitive to take away the most effective mitigation factor that our students have available because they can't get vaccinated yet. And so I think that's where I'm coming from. For those reasons, I would support a requirement for masking at the elementary school.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we were in session 151 days out of 170 last year, largely because we anticipated and we had masks, we had sanitizer there, and it seems that if we want to maintain as many people in school as possible, we have to make sure that we are starting at 10 and not starting at 5 and then ramping up. We need to be there from the get-go in order to sustain ourselves in session. I was trying to think of an analogy. I love dry roasted peanuts. I don't know whether you have them here. I love dry roasted peanuts. I don't eat them in school because kids are allergic to them. I can live without peanuts all day. And I think this is kind of a thing that we have to do as a community to support the community. Some people are going to be fine with that mask, but for the benefit of the entire community, I think we need to all come together. And this really is a moment where we need to be supportive, irrespective of our own personal beliefs, and make sure that we stay open and we stay staffed.
Do you have a recommendation regarding vaccinated students?
I would say that my son is vaccinated, he's 12, his sister, he's 10, is not vaccinated. I'm going to ask that he wears a mask when he goes into school, irrespective of that. I'm going to be wearing a mask simply because I live with my daughter and I have an elderly relative who lives with me and is susceptible. Just because we're vaccinated doesn't mean that we're impermeable. So I would be supporting a recommendation of masking.
Any other questions from committee members regarding the administrative recommendations or other questions for administration?
just what's next, because
Yeah, so I really appreciate how you find people coming forward and, discussing this topic with us. I think at this point, we have heard from committee members, and, if other, if committee members would like to say anything additional regarding the safety strategies in the policy, then I'd be welcome to hear a few more brief comments. Otherwise, I've been taking notes on things. The policy subcommittee will reconvene next week and then make edits. And hopefully, we would like to hear from the Board of Health. And we will avidly await any further guidance from DESE. And then we would like to represent the policy for a vote on the 23rd.
So can I be hypothetical here and
Sure.
say that you don't change it to a recommendation
From a requirement.
and it doesn't pass, then what?
At which time, the committee would be free to make an edit during that meeting, and we could attempt to pass the policy.
Okay.
Yeah. What I would like to avoid is like 20 brand new, you know what I mean?
Right.
Which is why we're having this discussion today, so we can hopefully bring something forward that either will pass or can easily be amended
minor
during the
edit.
meeting so that we can start the school year with clear recommendations.
I have a question about the mask breaks.
Yeah.
How many, how frequent, what is it going to look like this year compared to last year? Last year, I understand if the kids were having snack break in the classroom at the desks, one row had snack while the other still had their mask on, and, it alternated. Are they all going to take their masks off to have snack break at the same time? I'd like to know some of those details, to know how many mask breaks are planned.
Sure, we did not
I know it
illustrate
doesn't,
that in the policy,
Yeah.
but I'd love to hear from administration.
Yeah, I haven't had those
On
kind
that.
of conversations yet, so we'll get that and we'll bring it to the policy and we'll make sure we have it for the school committee meeting.
And
lunch
and
in
lunch
the
as well.
Lunch is the
cafeteria.
Lunch
other
is
question
going to be
that
in the
keeps coming
cafeteria.
up.
Yes, that much we know.
those answers would help me
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get those.
know if I could support this or not.
The other thing I think it would be helpful if you could shed some light on from last year, and I don't expect you to be able to answer this right now.
I'm taking notes.
So we talk about that a parent or child who needs to have an exception or a waiver, that the 504 or the IEP team would convene to discuss this. So I'm curious how well that worked last year. Did we have a lot of needs that were unmet? Where people were seeking to have an exemption, but yet it didn't work out that was allowed for some reason. Or if this part of the policy was like, it handled what it needed to handle and everything went okay. And those that needed exceptions actually found them. So if you could.
I'll look and see if we have that data.
Yeah, this is, Molly in her first month may not know that off
Right.
the tip of her tongue, but.
Yeah, I will say that the process of getting a mask exemption is also something that we spoke about in the committee. In the first part of the policy, it, talks about a written note from a physician, and then we get into the 504 and IEP policy that we had last year, and that is something simply that we discussed, and we didn't make any major changes to, but.
Right, so I noticed it wasn't a change, and I just wanted to,
I don't think it was advertised that could happen. Having a child that is on an IEP who could benefit from not having the mask covering her face so that she can see what's happening in front of her and speak and learn how to read. I don't think it was advertised that was even an option.
And I'm glad you brought it up, because when I read this, it really looked like the following list of reasons, and there are medical reasons that are listed, but then below that it just says who has a medical, behavioral, other challenge. And I don't know, it's not as clear
Right.
that a behavioral need is as supported as a medical need.
Yeah, I hear that, absolutely. And I think that this, this top part with these 4 bullet points, trouble breathing, unconscious, that had been taken like directly out of the CDC, and then other things were added in there, but we can definitely move some of those other reasons to the forefront.
Or not needing to specify unconscious, incapacitated,
Like I mean,
and
this was
trouble
also
breathing.
written in a different time, which is
Right.
why.
And I understand that, but if we're going to change it, maybe we can.
This is why we're
Here's an
having this
opportunity.
discussion.
Right.
Yep.
So I agree that while it was in there, and I remember reading it last year and having the conversation, there was so much other stuff going on. I can completely see how that just wasn't things that people were aware of.
Yeah.
So as we're going into this year, if we're looking at this policy, I would love to hear back from our new team about how they would reflect this in day-to-day. And are there students that we should approach? Maybe they didn't raise their hand because they didn't know they could raise their hand, but there's a chance to say, hey, we have a few students who probably should have an exemption for really good reasons, and that we would find some way to identify compromise and come up with a plan. So another is the sort of being proactive from the other side.
Right.
And while I'm anxious for all of us to wear masks, it's not the ones who shouldn't.
Right.
So each
But then
school
you're
has like a
singling out
student
kids
support.
that are
I'm sorry.
Then you're singling out kids that have a disability too, so that's.
Well, but I think
And
each
not
school.
necessarily be a visible.
Right. So each school
disability.
has a student assistance team. They call it the BST. And so that could be a place where they have conversations about students that the staff might recommend because of observations and conversations with kids and knowledge of what the kids are like when they're wearing the mask. So it's possible we could come at it from both angles, right? We could come at it from a parental perspective, but we could come at it from an educator perspective as well.
Just looking to be as equitable and as we possibly can.
Right. And that way it wouldn't have to be necessarily a student with a disability, but it could be observed behaviors that.
Could be for a broader maybe.
Reason.
Right, I think especially, thinking back to, writing this policy last year, we had really strong reasons for being like much more stringent. For instance, like, it has to be 2-layer, no gaiters and all this, which, we are sort of seeking to lighten some of that. So that would be great information, I think, to get. Yeah, absolutely. Do we have any other comments about any of this policy?
Madam Chair, I think
what is it?
Our director might want to speak to that.
Ms. Bremner?
Oh, sure.
Are you prepared to speak to it now? You may sit in the jump seat.
We don't want to put you on the spot, but we don't want to not allow you.
Exactly. Thank you.
So when we think about student needs, it's not just students with disabilities, it's all students. And we think about like civil rights, we also have the ADA policy and IDEA and all of this. So we have a lot of protections around access, and we need to make sure that kids can access their free and appropriate education. And so there, like Michael was saying, we have internal processes to consider various reasons. There could be all sorts of reasons that are not related to a learning disability, but maybe a health condition or some other reason to consider. And just like all students, we consider them all as individuals, even though, on paper I get to do it really strongly as the special ed person. So I think it's important to understand that we make accommodations and different kids are serviced in all different ways, and it doesn't necessarily target them, particularly when we're able to be back at centers and doing a lot of, that there will be some normalcy where kids come and go and a little bit of that. I don't envision, and my experience in my last district, and even seeing the summer program with some kids who wore masks or could not wear masks, that's just what it was. The kids know it. So everybody has their own plan, whether it's an allergy or a learning disability or a mask, everybody has their own plan. So I think that those things have been pretty seamless in my experience, and that includes Hatfield this summer. So.
This summer it was a strong recommendation too. It was great.
Thank you. All right. Any further comments from committee members? Right. So I would, in that case, like to, sorry? Do you have something?
Just a question.
Sure.
Will you and Jean report back what you hear from the Board of Health?
Oh,
meeting?
yes.
Absolutely.
absolutely.
That will come to
Because the-
policy as well.
Yeah,
That's
just
tomorrow
because
night at
the
what time?
minutes,
3:30.
Tomorrow
3:30.
afternoon, yeah,
Tomorrow at
3:30.
2:30?
3:30.
3:30.
I think it's here.
It is.
Tomorrow at
Yes.
3:30. Yeah, it just, because minutes
That is a
are,
hard
can't always count on
Absolutely.
reading those.
Yep.
And I don't judge them for that at all.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I definitely think that the policy subcommittee would also appreciate all of these things, so we can make our edits. So we will represent that. Okay. With that said, that is the bulk of our meeting. We have a couple other items, but I know it's getting late, so if some of the, administration team members would like to head out, you're more than welcome to, or you're always welcome to stay.
Thank you, Jean.
We just have a couple more things, and hopefully can wrap up soon.
Thanks. See you tomorrow.
Thank you guys so much, all of you. All right. The only other policy thing, oh, sorry, I'm going to let people go. Water break. The only other item under the policy section is simply regarding warrant signatures. You have in your packet a copy of the motion and meeting minutes that we passed early in the pandemic regarding moving to one school committee member signature, and we also used electronic signature at that time. But times being as they are, we wanted to bring forward if the committee would like to go back to 3 signatures on warrants, or if we would like to maintain the single signature.
Is there, I'm not familiar, is there an actual policy that says that it is a minimum of 3?
Don't know the answer to
I
that.
don't think so.
For this district.
I did look,
I mean, because you have it under policy, and I went, wait, is there?
Is that really a policy?
I don't remember all the policies.
I think
so-
it's a town
it's more like a
policy,
town.
All right.
not a school policy.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, personally,
fine
I
with
think
going.
there's like increased, oversight and transparency with
Yep.
more signatures, so
I'm
I think
fine
that
with
sounds
3.
fine.
I'm fine with 3 signatures.
I think finding ways that we can catch up with the technology of the world, where those 3 signatures could be electronic, would be fantastic.
That would,
But then you're not necessarily seeing the warrants are paper, they're not electronic, so
Wasn't there something that went with them when you did them electronically?
I didn't do any
yeah,
electronically.
I
That was
never
probably
the
Jill.
person who signed electronically.
Seeing all the invoices, seeing the other notations.
Yeah, I
included
assumed
with it.
if you had to do it electronically, you still got the support materials. I would never have thought that wouldn't have happened.
It should.
Yeah, I assume that it
Is
did.
it that
How
much
would
more
you-
work to do that? I
That
mean,
would be a lot more probably for,
I think it.
Maybe
I
we
think It's
don't-
our responsibility
Yeah,
to
it's not.
I'm
choose.
it's
fine
not
with
that
going
much
in
work.
the office.
I also don't know that we need
Do
to
it, but-
define how
No.
we do the signature.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, how much is paper needs to be electronic anyway? So some of those things are records you could make electronic, but I'm happy for the oversight.
Yep.
We're all
And
close enough to come in and sign.
I also think that would be great if we could move to electronic, as long as we still had those same materials, but I don't think we need to define that.
I agree. I'm not looking to define it in
Yeah.
policy here.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll make a motion to return to the minimum of 3 committee members' signatures on all warrants.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. Well, we passed that. All right. The next item is budget. I am not aware.
Yeah, no, you had the budget update in your
Neat.
packet. There's nothing to point out at this time. the only thing I would note is just that, with the new food services, we'll be figuring out as we go along how to budget for that more equitably. They are free and reduced, free lunches for all students. So our key is getting people to buy or to come. So hopefully we can figure out some advertising, some
Sold.
methodology to
The
get
highest
parents, to come and
Three
things like
right
that.
here.
Yeah, as a random aside, they're also allowing smoothies to be acceptable for that
Well,
program.
let's get Mr. Halpin
Yeah,
on that.
absolutely.
And
We're going to purchase a Vitamix.
I believe we already have one, which is how I heard about it. Was like,
Excellent.
we gave one of these to the school, so
Done.
that would just be some news to pass along and double check because.
Yeah.
But I think that was pretty good source of data that I heard it from.
Awesome. No transfers or anything.
No transfers.
All right. Any questions regarding the budget for Mr. Wood? And the budget subcommittee is hoping to schedule.
Yeah, we could, maybe if not the end of next week, the following week, we could schedule something.
That'd be great.
All right. So for the social justice and equity point, which is the standing agenda item, I actually had Heads Up was going to come talk to us, but our agenda got a little bit full, and they requested to defer until our September regular meeting. So I am looking forward to hopefully hearing from them at that time. And do you have anything additional about this?
Nothing, well, the one thing, and I think Chris spoke about it a bit, he is working to develop different activities with Prue and to figure out how to make sure that it's front and center in the work that they're doing.
And this was part of the
School improvement.
the roadmap.
It's
or
part of the
whatever.
roadmap,
It's
yes.
part of the published roadmap that we're
Right.
following.
Next time, can we make sure he stays for that?
Yeah,
I'd
to
like
talk about
to know
Prue.
what is
Yeah.
going on in Crew and if he's got a CRT plan and all that good stuff.
I will ask specifically to hear about Crew next meeting. All right. I don't have any other items requiring school committee action today. Has anything come forward to school
Just want to
committee members?
ask, are we comfortable waiting until Monday, the 23rd to vote on that policy? Or do we want to try to meet next week to give parents more time to absorb whatever decision we come to?
Sure. I am open. I just know that we need to, get our recommendations from Board of Health, make the policy edits, allow committee members to look at them, and then we need to have the meeting. So
Seems like 23rd is the earliest we really can do that if they're changing stuff on Tuesday.
Well, we have next
Soon as we
Wednesday,
could do it is
Thursday.
Thursday, I would think. You'd want to have at least a day to look at
right,
it.
because we would have to, write them up, send them out, give people time to look at it.
I mean, I think it's going to be first thing everybody reads. It's not going to sit on the burner for a couple days.
Yeah, no, I know, but I just, and it does depend on the committee. I know in the past, people preferred to have, time to really digest things before our meetings, but I am open to an interim meeting about this, but we do already have a tentative scheduled meeting for the 23rd, and I also don't know if our AV support would be available or if this room would be available. Just thinking about meeting accessibility.
Well, we also had said that if we needed to come up with other meetings, we would do it at Smith and
Yeah, no,
do it the old way.
No, we absolutely can, and we can try to figure out a way to put it on.
I'm
on
okay with waiting until
Zoom
the
again.
23rd if we have to, but I just
Right.
wanted to throw it out there. Do we want to consider trying next week,
Yeah.
specifically for
Yeah.
for this
You
policy?
want me to call tomorrow to see if this is available on Thursday next week?
I mean, we can also, hold
Would
it
that
at
be
some
in
other time.
place of our 23rd meeting? Could we just
Yes,
shift
I
the
don't have
23rd
anything
meeting
else
to
on
the
the
other?
agenda
If
for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I would assume that it would
I
be
would too,
instead of.
just to
Yeah.
check.
Yep. Yeah,
Yes.
I don't have anything else for that meeting agenda, just this.
Well, why don't we see if we can make the effort to move it sooner. If it's really not possible, then we fall back to the 23rd. But if we can move it up.
And we'll also need to reach out to Ms. Maloney regarding her availability.
Yeah.
Because we'll need all 5 members.
So while I generally think that's a really good idea, I just want to ask the question about new guidance coming from DESE that was alluded to this evening.
We hope Tuesday, they said. So I'm hoping it's before our policy meeting,
Okay.
When's your policy meeting?
4:30.
4:30 on Tuesday.
Okay.
At Smith.
Mhm.
So
Would Thursday work
Thursday
for
work for
committee
people?
members?
I can do Thursday.
I can too.
The Patriots play Thursday night, but I can try and
I
figure it
am
out.
double booked, but I
Just
can make this a priority.
I mean, if
We
you've
could meet
already got
earlier.
something, we could be earlier.
Earlier would be
True.
grand.
I'm always good
well,
for that.
Where you can't pick up, but we
bet
might
you
find someone else to do that.
Yeah.
Unless we did it much earlier.
All right. Well, I think maybe
I'm
the
just kidding
committee
with
can
you.
continue to talk offline and explore.
Yeah, we can figure this out.
If it's an option. Otherwise, we have the 23rd all squared away. It
Yeah.
is a few days before students return. But
And it's not as if
I think
people
either
don't own
way
masks.
it goes, it's
Students
gonna
already have
be,
masks, and we also have them to provide to folks who don't. So,
I think either way it goes, it's gonna be a pill for people to swallow, so
this is,
it needs to be.
if it were not a
done as
controversial
soon.
topic, we would have, we would have just already done it.
I would like to just say that all the emails that we got, it
Pretty
was more
Steven.
even
Yeah.
than I anticipated. I mean, it wasn't dead even, but it was,
2 to 1. I tallied it up. What
I
I got
did
was
too.
2 to 1.
well, I had 14 to 10. So
Then you got some emails I didn't get. That's okay. I'm
no,
just saying.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
Okay.
but you know, it was clear that it was definitely
divide.
a split
Yeah.
Yeah.
feeling on this.
Yes.
And I just want to be
And that's what
mindful
I
of that.
saw in like the summer school was, it was amongst staff and kids. Half the staff had masks, half did not. Half of the kids had masks, half did not. So it's not just,
But I just wanted to acknowledge
one.
that
Yep.
we recognize
It
that
is very
there
split.
is,
I agree with that.
Absolutely.
you know,
agreed.
different opinions.
And
on
I
it.
think there was a lot of people, probably for both sides, that are just tired of fighting this fight.
Right.
That
Yeah.
didn't even say anything formally, but
I think we're all
have
tired.
feelings, very strong feelings. Yeah. Yep.
I think we can acknowledge that this is
Yep.
controversial, so. All right. Well, with that being said, I don't have a need for executive session tonight.
Well, then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Perfect. 9/11. I second.
All in
I'm sorry,
favor?
who's second? I didn't-
Aye.
Danielle?
Danielle.
Aye.
Aye.
We're all in favor. Wonderful.
We're all in favor.
All
I
right.
don't think any of us are going to say
Meeting
no.
adjourned at 9:11 PM.